Hey YouTube, Coppersan here. There are a ton of classes and skills in MapleStory, and some of the skills are slightly balanced in a more favorable way than others, giving certain classes an incredible edge or even defining their whole playstyle, and here are 10 of those overpowered abilities. Royal Guard, Michiel. This list is in no particular order, but Royal Guard would definitely be in the top 5 of most overpowered skills if this was such a list. When looking for overpowered skills, we're not only looking at skills that do a lot of damage, because there are plenty of those, but what else they do for a class as well. Royal Guard is a skill that is insanely strong. It can only be used when Michiel is hit as a counter attack, blocking the attack, dealing damage, increasing Michiel's attack power. It gives a 4-second invincibility frame, meaning that you can't get hit for a couple of seconds, and increases Michiel's attack power. This skill works as a stacking buff, increasing Michiel's attack with every stack. Also, the higher the amount of stacks, the more damage the skill does, and the bigger the hitbox gets. At one point, the explosion from this skill takes up a big portion of the screen. Royal Guard can block any attack. It doesn't matter if it would one-shot you, it just gets blocked and shrugged off as if nothing happened. And to make things even more crazy, this skill has a 6-second cooldown, and since the iframe lasts for 4 seconds, theoretically speaking, Michiel's can only be hit for 2 seconds every 6 seconds. If any other class would have this skill, it would be completely broken, but given Michiel's other skills, this is a nice skill for him to have. Final Pact, Dark Knight. Assume for a second that you are Horntail, fighting a small Mapler, and you manage to take him down, his puny Dark Knight or something, only for the dude to instantly revive. You cannot hit him anymore, and he starts destroying you with his bossing skill, which was supposed to have a cooldown, but suddenly it doesn't anymore. Dark Knight's Final Pact is basically a big reverse Uno card. When you die, you just shout "no you," and then Final Pact revives the Dark Knight. There is a 40-second invincibility frame, lasting even longer than the most fabulous Paladin iframe, and to top it off, the Dark Knight can now start spamming their Gunner's Descent skill, which is their bossing skill that usually has an 8-second cooldown to take down any baddie that gets in their way. This skill does have a lengthy cooldown of 15 minutes, but it can be shortened to 10 minutes if the Dark Knight manages to defeat 30 monsters or attack a boss monster 30 times in 40 seconds. Thankfully, while the Dark Knight is invincible, they also gain Ignore Attack and Attack Reflection. But wait, there's more. The skill also has a passive effect that increases the Dark Knight's final damage, movement speed, critical rate and critical damage, all while the Dark Knight has more than 20% HP, which isn't too difficult for a class that has a ton of healing and life-stealing skills. And the skill can also be buffed up even more with Dark Knight's passive hyper skills, further increasing the passive critical rate buff and adding additional final damage when the skill is active. Emerald Flower, Wind Archer. Don't you just hate it when a boss monster attacks you? I surely do. I only have so many lives before I get kicked out of the battle again. Thankfully, Wind Archers have a nifty solution for this problem. Introducing Emerald Flower, arguably the best dummy skill in the game. This skill summons a crystal that draws aggro, slows down monsters and has a lot more HP than for example the Mirror Target dummy skill from Dual Bladers. Plus this skill also lowers monsters' defense and reduces damage intake by 20%. Boss monsters really hate this one trick. Should Hilla attack this Mapler who's actually hurting her, or this shiny crystal? Well, obviously the crystal is way more dangerous. Wind Archers have a few other pretty broken skills, like their Vacuum Hex skill, Vortex Spear and Guild Barrier, but I wanted to limit all classes to only appear once on the list, else it would just be a list of all page skills, because you know, without a doubt, that's the most godly class in the game. Sage, Wrath of Gods, Hoyoung. Now what exactly makes a skill overpowered? Well, if a skill provides a buff to all your other attacking skills, has great mobbing attacks for a short duration, but also doubles as a burst skill and an invincibility frame, I think that deserves a spot on this list. This skill increases Hoyoung's damage when used, plus it increases the damage on his Heaven, Earth and Humanity skills, as well as his Clone and True skills. Jeez, next one, just write like all skills. Also, when active, attacks pop out every 12 successful attacks, which hits multiple monsters and is actually great for mobbing. Then this skill can be used again to summon Ancient Gods, as if this skill wasn't OP enough, dealing a ton of burst damage, and Hoyoung is invincible during the cast animation. It's like one skill with a whole package. World Reaver, Hero. Heroes have a couple of crazy skills that increase their final damage by a ton, but their 5th job skill World Reaver takes the cake. When I use this attack on my hero for 5 seconds, my final damage can increase all the way from 203% to more than 300%. This is a massive damage boost, and while it only lasts for a couple of seconds, it increases heroes' damage by a ton. Plus this attack obviously also deals damage, and conveniently also is an invincibility frame when used as well. To make this skill even more balanced, it only has a 20-second cooldown, which doesn't only make it one of the shortest cooldown iframes in the game, it also means heroes can increase their damage by a ton very often. Throwing Star Barrage, Night Lord. One of the best, if not the best burst skill in the game. Throwing Star Barrage is one of the reasons why Night Lords are such an amazing burst class. Throwing Star Barrage gives your throwing skill additional spread. All these additional projectiles hit monsters as well, dramatically increasing the amount of hits and the amount of times the Assassin Mark skill activates. The result is a crazy amount of hits and arguably one of the best burst skills in the game, with the only downside being that you have to be pretty close to the boss for your stars to hit as well. Before we continue, I want to remind you that you're watching the Coppersan channel, and that I love to put nostalgic stuff in every video that I do. So let's talk about some older skills that were also completely busted for their time. Well, getting mesos was a big issue for Maples back in the good old days. There was one class that was not only always rich, but also had the most broken skill in the game. Chief Bandit's Meso Explosion. Back then, bandits could explode dropped mesos as well, and the higher the meso count, the more damage a Meso Explosion did. This resulted in Chief Bandits being the only class that was able to solo any boss, if they were rich enough, that is. Some other really overpowered skills were basically all Explorer Magician full screen attacks. Blizzard, Meteor and Genesis did not have any cooldown, so you could be freely spamming those, creating a very unbalanced playing field when it comes down to grinding. I think Jet also had a time where his full screen attack was just had no cooldown whatsoever. Power Guard used to be very overpowered in a way as well. It required a bit more setup though, but if a low level character was in a party with a low level fighter that had Power Guard and a Bishop, if those would then go to Skelegons, the character with Power Guard would run into the monsters, reflect some damage and die, and then the Bishop would finish off the monster, and this way the other lower level character could leech from the higher level areas, because Power Guard would for some reason completely ignore the accuracy formula. Good times. Anyway, let's quickly head back to the present. Antigravity Cycle SFFX Summon Jet. So we already had a ton of skills that provide invincibility and whatnot on this list, but what about mobility? Introducing the skill with probably the longest name, the Antigravity Cycle SFFX Summon, Jet hops onto his bicycle from the future and amazing things start to happen. Jet gains his shield equal to 420% of his max HP, is immune to knockback and his final damage increases. Jet can fly around the map for 30 seconds using some of his attacking skills or use the Antigravity Cycle skill again to fire off a volley of missiles to deal damage every couple of seconds. Jet can use his increased mobility to dodge around boss attacks, and his shield helps him tank damage if he does get hit, plus additional damage and attacks itself make this an incredibly powerful skill. Our side, Battle Mage. There is a reason why this class is present in most big bossing parties, and that isn't because of their insane damage or anything like that. Battle Mages are the master of utility with their auras. The yellow aura increases attack speed, the dark one increases damage, the red one heals party members, there's a debuffing aura, and the blue aura increases status resistances and decreases damage taken for all party members. Now usually Battle Mages can only use one of those auras at a time, but when the 5th job skill Aura Side is active, all your auras will activate at the exact same time, providing a ton of utility to the party, making some other classes pretty jealous. Furthermore, this skill increases magic attack and it enhances the Battle Mage blow skills to deal increased damage, ignore a portion of the enemy defense, and increases the chance to critical strike. This skill lasts for 30 seconds and only has a 100-second cooldown, so the uptime isn't half bad either. Shield Mastery, Paladin. Of course, we couldn't leave the most godly class Paladin out of this list. Imagine having a skill that has 40% chance to block any attack. Just because. Paladin's Shield Mastery might visually not be very fun, but jumping through Lotus lasers and not even getting hit sure is fun. Furthermore, this skill increases the normal status resistances, elemental resistance, more than doubles the Paladin's already crazy high defense, increases attack power, and if Paladins guard, there also is a chance to stun monsters. And even though this is a different skill, Paladins can also share this guard ability with their party members. At least they're nice enough to share some of their overpoweredness. But before I mention the final skill on this list, which I'm pretty sure is no surprise to anyone that has played MapleStory in the last couple of years, I want to share two honorable mentions. Demon Slayer's Blue Blood skill doubles the lines on their attacks for only a 10% damage penalty, which is actually insane. It's the best Shadow Partner skill in terms of reduced damage on the lines, and it isn't even a thief. The downside of this skill is that it has a cooldown that lasts longer than the duration, but the cooldown can be lowered by absorbing Demon Fury, which at higher levels is super easy, so this skill will have a 100% uptime guaranteed. Another broken skill is Zero's Critical Bind. This skill passively has a chance to bite monsters for 4 seconds, and since this is a passive skill, it can be applied just by attacking with beta. This bind also has a lower cooldown than any other bind in the game, making it quite overpowered. Alright, you know, there actually are 2 skills for this class that I want to put on this list, since Konas Spirit Domain is such a crazy, insane buff, but I want to stick to only mentioning a class once, so here we are. Kana has the most overpowered skill in the game. It is so overpowered that it literally destroyed channel servers and completely changed the game's meta. Konas Kitchen Shogun skill increases monster spawn rate and increases the max amount of monsters that can appear in a map. This is completely broken in such a grindy game as MapleStory. Nexon even tried to remedy the overpoweredness of this class by adding more spawn increasing items, but to no avail. Konas Kitchen is the reason why there is a 2PC meta and half the population of Reboot is a Kana. Having a permanent spawn increasing ability is just insanely overpowered, especially if you look at other classes who have to rely on totems, which are hard to get and limited. And there were 10 overpowered skills in MapleStory. Which other skill would you add to this list? Let me know in the comments. And that was all for today. As always, many thanks to our members for making this video possible. Thanks to Niels the Coninck, Raar maar waar, Sebastian Hanoy, FLX, Ryalias, Terry Kim, Vareese, Dries Zumker, Plux, Wiley, Francisco Sousa, Historycanon, BackSpaceOTI, ceemak, Saffronyx, Lorenzo, BG Extremes, Anwar NHI, Brandon, Frank Bouquet, Ziggy Deer, Flidiot, Beamer WT, Knifesu, Chen125, Pinky Traveler, Cloudfix, Gusuts Rodriguez, Sir QQ Morse, Froggy11, Sir Tito655, Grayson Lee, Ricer RU, Brandon Cam, Vira, Bruno H, Dular, Trevor, Yuki436, Afterlord _MS, Sinfralido, Ritius, John Man, Lucky Beats, Justin Veal, and Silvio Nato. If you would like to be mentioned here as well and get early access to new videos, make sure to check out that join button below this video. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and happy mapling!